All right, so to continue from the previous video, um, what essentially I'm going to talk about now is essentially just working with pages. So the nice thing about having InDesign, it's great for your own portfolio. It's a great way to start to organize your pages and working on your pages here. Essentially, that's what it's really made for. Um, and it's nice because you can go to here to the pages and say, for example, I want to add one extra page, right? I want to add a page, um, for example, after the third page, I want to add one here. So I can insert page, right click, insert page, one page after the third page, hit OK. And now what it's done is after my third page is entered in a blank page now. Right? And it's also great for reshuffling the pages, right? Just say, for example, you got the wrong order or you don't like the order, so you want to change it. So instead of copying and pasting all your images into different pages, you just come over here into pages and say, for example, this last page is now going to be my second page. So I can just move this here, and it's now my second page. It's now reshuffled everything. This blank page, I want this at the end. Just move it down here. Now the blank page is down here. So it's also a great way just to reshuffle everything. But if you're going to be using it for presentations, you obviously want something that's a bit the layout to be a little bit better. So one thing you can do is you can come over here to Pages, and I'm just checking on this little icon in here. Allow document pages to shuffle. Uncheck that. So now what I can do is I can take, say, for example, this last one, and I can move it up here towards the first one. And what I'm looking for is this bracket symbol. If I get really close, I'm looking for that bracket symbol. And as soon as I let go, it puts that page right next to the first one. And I can do this for the rest of the pages. Again, just make sure you're looking for that bracket symbol. And what's great about this is just imagine these are all your presentation boards, some 24 by 36 inch boards. And you can work with them all as one single arrangement. The one thing you can't do and cannot do, unfortunately, say you have a 6-board layout. And you have a 6-board layout, and you have 3 boards up top, 3 boards on the bottom. The boards that are next to each other up here, they'll line up perfectly. There's no way to close this gap, unfortunately. So if you do have something like this, you will have that gap in between the two. But if you have your boards laid out next to each other, it works really well. So obviously, if you want to just export this as is, you could always go to File, there'll be PDF presets, high quality print. Here, before we do this, because some of you might run into this issue, when we export this, it's going to be exported fairly quickly. But when you have larger boards, you really want to see how much time it takes to export. So if you go over to Window, Utilities, Background Tasks, so when you go to File, Export, High Quality Print, let's save this on the desktop as a PDF. All of them, sure. Yep. For some reason, I'm getting an error. Let's see, where's it coming from? Yeah, there it is. I don't know, for some reason, I was getting an error. So exporting this as a high quality print PDF, exporting all of them, export. Here it'll give me a little rundown of how long it's going to take. Obviously, this is fairly quick, but if you're doing like a larger size presentation with a lot of images, it will take a while. It could take up to 10-15 minutes to export this, and it's just nice to have the background task turned on just so you can see how long it's going to take. So once you have this, it's giving you the multiple page PDF file. Right, which is nice because now you can just print these individually. Again, say for example these were 24 by 36 inch boards. Now you can print them. Or another thing you can do is when you export, high quality print. I'll give this a different name. Under pages, if you export these as spreads, what it'll do is instead of giving you individual pages, it'll export it as one large presentation board. Again, which is also nice for if you're doing like a digital presentation. So instead of having the individual pages, it gives you your entire presentation. So it's nice just to have that as an option. So then the last thing we're just going to cover is just text and swatches. So for text is again just fairly straightforward and simple. Text, I'm going to say just give it something. My project, I can change the font. I just changed it to a custom font, one that I always use. Let me just change the size of the font. So I always just use a font that's called Steiner, and I normally go to this website, dafont.com. All the fonts that are on here are free. They're always updating them, and people are always submitting different ones. So this is a custom font that I always use, and I'm going to explain custom fonts in just a second. But you normally want to have a nice font that you use when you have your presentations. But fonts can get a little tricky when you're trying to print them or give them to somebody else or export them. So I'll talk about that in 1 second. But the other thing, just to note, so I talked about swatches in Illustrator, just so you can have your basic color scheme match up, and you can import swatches into Photoshop, and you could also just to get the RGB value. So when you do your renderings, you can have the same color font or the same color for your renderings. That's what we did with this presentation. So all of our text was this color red. So the entire presentation matched, right? The color of the font matched the color of the renderings, also matched the color of our drawings, which we did in Illustrator. Just so we can have like an overall scheme where the colors work together. So to get the colors to import into InDesign, just come over here to Swatches. Where is it? Load swatches. Sorry, it took me a while. I'm going to just add or load the same one that we got from that Cooler website. All right, because it's an Adobe product. It works in all Adobe products. Photoshop, InDesign, Premiere, Illustrator. So I can open it, and now I have the same color swatches. So now if I select this and say I'm going to change it to that color, I can now change it to a different color, so just so I can have all my colors match up with my presentation board. So one thing that I just want to note within errors, so what I explained in the previous project was you can get errors if your files are out of date, but you could also get errors with your font. So for example, if this box was too small and it doesn't show all of my font that's in here. One, if I'm in the regular preview mode, it'll give me a little red box that's down here, but it'll also give me an error. Right? And I don't know if it'll tell you the exact error that it has. Yeah, it's telling me that there's a text error. I just double clicked, telling me there's a text error. And it's because the entire text is not showing up in the box. So obviously if I just make it a little bit larger, where it actually is showing up in the box, then the error goes away. Another one that gives you a little bit of error, which is somewhat annoying, is if you're in here and you actually have a couple spaces, that there's too many spaces and they're not fitting inside the box. Even though it looks like all your text is showing up, just because you have too many spaces in here, it's giving me some errors. So that's just one thing to note. So just make sure you don't have any, just deleting all the extra spaces. Make sure you just don't have any extra spaces in there, and it should get rid of the errors. So one thing about exporting fonts, especially when you use your own custom font, if you were to export this file and take it to another printer that does not have this one specific font, and you try to open it, chances are it's not going to open correctly. What it's going to do is it's going to change your font to a font that's as close as it can get, but it won't give you the exact same font. So one workaround, one way to actually get it to work with the correct font, one is to take the font with you and load it into the other computer, which sometimes it's not always possible. But if you go over here to Adobe PDF presets, and instead of doing a high quality print, if you do one of the ones that have an X on there, the PDF X 2001, 2, or 8, I'll do the 8. Give it a different name. I'll do all of them. If you do it with the X, what it does is it actually takes your font and it actually embeds it into the file. So in this PDF file, the actual font exists in this PDF file. So that way I can take it to any computer and print it on any printer, and it should look exactly the exact same way it did on your own computer. Again, if you don't do that, if you notice a difference in your custom font or a font that you downloaded, it's mainly because it's not putting the actual font in the PDF file. So this is just one way to set it up. And as far as quality goes, doing one of those X settings, 2001 or 4 or 8, the actual quality itself is the same as doing a high quality print. And I think that's it for like the basics of InDesign. So for this assignment, essentially what you're going to end up with is you're going to have 3 different images, right? You're going to have the one snapshot, the one clay rendering, and the one material rendering. So you can set this up however you like. You can have it as 3 separate pages, right? Just say as an example, these are my three renderings. I have one snapshot, one clay rendering with the overlay, and then one material rendering. I can set them up as 3 separate pages. I can set them as one larger page. However you want to do it, however you want to set it up. The last thing I'll just very quickly mention as I'm thinking about it is the actual size. So I think I talked about this last time, document setup. And as long as they're changed to inches, you can now change the overall size. I'm just keeping the default 8.5 by 11, but you can change that. And the other thing that you can change is this purple and pink guideline. By default, it comes in here, I think, as 5 inches. And it's just a general guideline just for printing purposes. But you can change it by going to margins and columns. Again, it's default 0.5. You can change it to whatever you like, and it'll change your layout. So, so that's it. That'll cover this assignment. And again, just turn it in on however many pages you want to.